Okay. Hi, Vanele. Welcome to my podcast. So I would like to start by introducing myself. My name is Itumeleng Molele. I'm a honors student at the University of the Witwatersrand, Johannesburg. I'm enrolled in the BSc Honors Urban and Regional Program. And as part of my coursework, I was required to do a podcast. So for my podcast, I chose to center it around my interest, which is informality. So my podcast basically unpacks informality through the lens of land use management. I decided to invite you because I know we out here Sekasi. You're also a planner or aspiring planner. Let me rather say that. And I know that you also have a lot of views around informality and planning as a whole. So yes, can you please just introduce yourself to everyone who's watching and listening?
Oh, hey, Itu. My name is Banele Mosego, also a planning honor student, candidate planner as well, according to Subplan. Currently doing freelance town planning work. So yeah, I also do have a lot of views on informalities, and as you said, young Intwana Sekasi. So yeah, see, let's see what questions you have for me today. And yeah, hopefully
Okay.
this is a good podcast.
All right. So this is going to be my reflecting podcast. Like, so I'm just concluding on the interviews I've had, the people I've spoken to, and the conversations that have emerged from this lens that I'm trying to look at informality through. So I've spoken to a professional planner. I've spoken to a um, traffic officer, law enforcer, and I've also spoken to immersion planners like my classmates. So the reason why I chose, I've also spoken to someone who occupies space informally according to legislation and planning policy. So the reason why I've chosen to like go across the spectrum is because I'm trying to get a broad overlook of the different actors within the space of informality. So whether you're looking at it from a policy and technocrat point of view or a law enforcement point of view, or from someone who's within the space and acting informally, or even as us going into the field and trying to make a difference, right? And what I got was quite broad because from the planner, when I told him what I feel is that we lack innovation as planners. Hence, yes, we have Spluma and we have a spatial system that has transformed, but then the transformation is barely felt on the ground. And that was informed by my discussions with the informal vendor who said he had been using that space for 15 years. 13 of those years he didn't he, 13 of those years he was like his business was disturbed by law enforcement because traffic police officers would just come and confiscate his equipment because he's not allowed to use the space until a few years ago when he got the permit. Then I also got to speak to the law enforcer himself, who was like the reason why they are seen as harsh or acting out of brutality is because they are frustrated because there are processes in system. Like, for example, I didn't know that to occupy space informally, you could actually go to their department and apply for a permit. So they are saying there's things these people can do. So they're not just acting from um, oppressing them. They're acting from a point of yes, there are processes in place, but then the people still do not follow them. So it's very different views because there's a lot of privilege in certain instances. There's a lot of power in others, and I feel like right down there at the bottom is just those people in the actual space who aren't really liberated, and I want to advocate for that. So when I as the Sekasi, someone who's in the planning field as well, what's your take? How do you think land use how do you think land use management tools and planners can empower informality? Because I mean, we live in South Africa, we live in Africa, and informality is something that has characterized us, and it's not going anywhere. So where do you think, where to from here?
Wow, that was a lot of information, but I truly do support you. My take on this whole informality thing, being someone who does freelance work, is that most of the time people don't have access to information, right? As you did mention that you only found out recently that you need a permit for you to actually sell on the side of the road or wherever there is. So my biggest concern with the land use sector of planning is that not many people know about land use rights. Not many people know about the property rights. It's a matter of I it's divided into two, right? So the first side of it is people who are ignorant, because information is there, readily available, right? And then there's also the stubborn side of things, people who don't want to consider planning laws. For instance, when they developing even households in the townships, like your back rooms and all those infrastructure that people build on their property. Yes, it's your land and this is your property, but do you know that you have to provide the municipality or with information that, hey, listen, on this day and this day, I'm going to be building here. So I need my land use rights amended. I need one, two, three. This is what I'm going to do with my property. So when, as a freelance town planning consultant, most people, even when you explain delicately and in detail about such land use management schemes that are in place, like when you tell them about spluma, when you tell them about rezoning, when you tell them about, hey, there's this such an application like building land relaxations and stuff. Not There's some people who know that information but are not willing to pay or sacrifice a portion of money in order for that development to happen. So I think
Can I just come in there?
yes,
Okay, so you said there's two words that stood out for me in what you just said. Said there are people that are ignorant, and you're saying there's people who are stubborn. I
yes.
completely beg to differ, because we need to go back to the basics. What is the reason for the informality we see? We need to go to the root cause of this emergence and mushrooming of informal settlements, informal trading in spaces where they're not supposed to be. It's not because people are trying to defy the law intentionally. It's because of need. People put these stalls on the side of the road where they are not even safe, because a car can just come out of nowhere and hurt them, or they can just be bulldozed off of the land. But then they do that because they just want to put food on the table. These people have families. These people are coming from rural areas where they come into the city looking for economic opportunities. You want to be close to what a sense, and you want to be close to what would need. The closest place for you, give Alexandra, you're going to be Alexandra, you're just going to put an informal settlement there, or Oyeko Tembisa, and you just put an informal settlement there. It's not because you want to defy those building and planning regulations. It's just because you don't have a choice. Housing and accommodation in well located places and land is inaccessible to you as someone who has nothing. So I feel like you are speaking from a technocrat point of view. What you're saying is correct on paper, but does it make sense in reality? Is my question.
It Wow, I understand where you're coming from, right? I totally get it. I'm also for whatever you're saying. But all by what I mean by people are ignorant and people are stubborn, right? People are ignorant in terms of as that trader that you said was operating on the side of the road, right? When they confiscate his equipment or tell him to move, it's his duty to ask, why am I being moved from this place, right? And obviously, the first response would be because you don't have a permit,
Yeah.
right? And then he asks, how much is it to get a permit? And you actually have to pay money, but people don't want to pay that money. So what does he do? He wakes up in the morning and goes back to the same spot. And then tomorrow, when they confiscate it, why do you defy the law? Oh, because I don't have money for the 200 for the permit. So I just thought I'd stay here, make the 200 and try apply. But 2, 3 weeks later, you're still in the same spot. Because there's no one that can remove you or move you from a certain location that you are designated at without reason. There's always reason. And in that reason is where the ignorance and the stubbornness lies, because no traffic officer is going to move you from the side of the road with no reason and say, no, you just can't be here. No, you need to have a reason. Why can I not be here? You don't have a permit. Oh, okay. So if I had to apply for a permit tomorrow and I get it, will you allow me to be here? And the officer will probably say yes. So that's where it comes in. I'm not saying that don't come from the rurals and come find economic opportunity in the city. There's so much economic opportunities, but if you ask the right people, the information is there. It's just that people are stubborn to ask, and people are ignorant of the law because they just feel, oh, asna imali to apply for that thing, so might as well just wing it until I'm caught. And by the time you caught, that's when people start seeing this on the news, and people start seeing this ever, and all the human rights people are just like, no, it's unfair, people. But all those people know no one is moved in jail. No one is
Yeah.
just
Can
moved. Yeah.
can I just come in there? So, okay,
Yes.
I think maybe we've been focusing too much on the law enforcement. I want us to go back to the reason why those provisions and regulations are being enforced, right? Let's go back to the bylaws. Let's go back to Spluma. Let's go back to the legislature that has been drafted.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you think there's so many rules, there's so many red tape, and I feel like it acts as such a hurdle for not just informality, but then for development in a developing country. And when I said that to the professional planner, he begged to differ that land use management and its tools are acting as a stumbling block. Um, what what would you what how would you comment on that?
Please repeat the question.
Okay, so basically, when we break it down, I feel like the problem isn't just the law enforcement, it's the laws that are being enforced, which go back to the bylaws and Spluma. So I feel like those very same laws and provisions within those legislations, I feel like that's the reason why our people feel oppressed, like the informal trader said. So I personally, I would like for us to take a step back and review, because I feel like people are drafting these provisions and laws from a place of black and white when there is so much grayness.
Can I just interrupt you there, right?
Yes, please.
As you know, right? There's law, and then there's people that try to, you know, just try and maneuver around the law, right? Like try find loopholes within the law system. Okay.
Yes.
So now most of most of these planning laws and regulations, it's to have some sort of control over development in the next
Correct.
10 to 15 years, right? it's
Correct.
it's it's yeah,
Correct.
it's
Yes.
yeah, it's to channel development in a positive direction, right? But now, if these laws and these regulations are helping channel development in a certain directions, within that space, there's people that are always looking for loopholes in the law, right? That's where the informalities come in, right? And then
Yeah.
we can't govern informal stuff, right?
Yes.
Although we, yeah, although we can say, no, there's an informal market, there's, the informal people of, we can't govern that because in the informalities, there is no control. And
Yes.
that's where the problem stems from because people don't like to be controlled, especially with something that they think is theirs. Yes, it's yours by name. As black and white, it is yours. But to the people around you, it's the municipalities because they control that. So that in the next 10 to 15 years, if the rules that they've set are not being met, they change it. That's why there's stuff like IDPs, which are reviewed per 2 years, right? But no
Yeah.
one speaks about that. No one speaks about IDPs of certain municipalities. Some municipalities don't even have IDPs. The last IDPs they probably
Yes.
had was probably 2012, 2014, and those things need to be regulated like per year. Like an IDP needs to come out that says 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But people don't do it because no one wants to follow the law. Hence, I'm going back to my same point. There's people who know the right thing, and there's people who defy, or knowing very well that you
Okay,
can't
so
do
now
this.
I'm confused. Now I'm confused because you're speaking about IDPs. So who are you saying are the stubborn and defiant people? Are you saying it's the planners or, well, people holding certain leverages of power? Or are you saying it's the people within those informal spaces?
It's
Who are you putting the responsibility for the failure of accommodating informality?
it's the end user, so it's always going to be the people, right? It's always going
Wow,
to be
so
the
you're
people.
blaming you're blaming the people.
Yes, I'm blaming the end user because as
Okay.
planners, because okay, take let's take this thing as a car, right? For example,
Yes.
right? A car. As planners, we are the ones that build the car, right? And we tell you that this car should last about uh, 5 to 10 years, right? As the planners,
Yes.
we are building the car, right? We are building
Yes.
the car, and then the control, which are all or ITPs, Pluma and them, those are the metro police. So Abantu that stop you at the side of the road and ask you for a license, right?
Yes.
Yes. And then there's the end user, which is who? The driver of that vehicle.
Yes.
Okay. So you tell me if you you get into an accident, whose fault is it? Is it the people that built the car or is it the person that's using the car? Hmm? Did you hear that?
But then that's a very I feel like that's not really a good it's a good example because the answer is just as complex as informality. Because I could say it's the driver, but there could be barraking, there could be technical failure within
In
technical and mechanical failure within the car, which can also be attributed to the quality of the make, right? And who does
yes.
that go back to? It goes back to the plan in this case. Same as in our case, we can say, okay, the failure or lack of growth within informality or the lack of prosperity for users within informality could be a result of them not being able to maneuver around the correct channels.
Yes. So who's at
But
fault
whose
there?
fault is that? Whose fault is it that the channels within the system are not empowering? We can take it back to state failure. We can take it back to policymakers who are making things impossible for people to go forward. So, I mean, it's a very complex. answer. And yeah,
Not the
I
thing
don't think
is,
there's any right or wrong. I think from this point we need to come together and collaborate,
mm,
because I feel like this divide of formal, informal, that is the problem right there.
no, but you can never ever separate the two. The two coexist. The
The two
two
coexist. Exactly. So I feel like we're saying the same thing. The two coexist, but then I feel like planning and land use management tools have made the two not even parallel to each other, but then they've made the two in conflict with each other.
yes, I
Yes. So how do we remedy that? That's my conversation right now. How do we remedy that as the next generation of planners?
by implementing control over the informal settlement, well, the informalities. No, I'm being honest. Like,
But then
if we
doesn't
can't,
that take us? I feel, well, from the conversations I've had, all the students have been saying participatory, let's work together. And you now coming in and saying by exercising control over, doesn't that go back to that top-down approach that we're trying to do away with?
but though, you see why I'm saying it's stubbornness, right? So everyone is trying to make a better a better city, a better livable condition, better, access to opportunities, better, but
Yes.
as planners, we don't have control over informalities, right? So does the law doesn't have control over that, right? So, for instance, if Alexandra had to be demarcated for housing, right? Are you
Yes.
aware that not many people would live in Alexandra, and more opportunities for the people that stay there would be accessible to them, but now they can't because now they've over flooded the opportunity channel, that it's just chaos. Like, nothing is controlled there. The businesses are not controlled there. The businesses on the side, you can't control an informal trader. Like, for instance, you can't tell umuntu uthengisa amakipkip nama netok sweet to pay his taxes at SARS, but that's a legitimate business. He's making a profit from it. Or umuntu ochisa inyama at the side of the road. You can't control that. So how are we supposed to think for someone who's already defying the law by trading illegally, or someone that's occupying space illegally? And then we go to them, and already there's rules and laws that protect people from that. Because I'm sure if you can go on the internet now, there's so many cases whereby the state is against people, and 99% of the time people do win those cases. But now it's a thing of, although you've won, we still can't exercise control over you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why for
I feel like
formality,
yes, please complete that.
inform for informalities and formalities, they coexist based on the one is controlled and the other one is not, right? The one is
Yeah.
controlled, the other one is not. And if 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 I'm understanding your question, you're trying to make the two coexist, right?
Yes.
Yes, already they coexist. So there's nothing there. But what I'm getting from it is, you are saying the informality, well, the people that cause these informalities should have a say, right? In planning
Yes.
laws. Yeah, but how do you give people who are operating illegally outside of the law to have a say about the law?
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Okay. That's food for thought. Okay. So just your closing remarks. How would you wrap how would you wrap your part of the conversation?
I think your questions are very valid, and it shows that yeah, there's people that are thinking for the smaller people in our society.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to understand that in order for anything to be formalized, right, it needs a
Yeah.
certain level of control. I don't know if we can agree on that. If anything to be formalized, it needs a certain level of control.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes,
That's correct.
yes. Yeah, because now back to informalities. Umuntu othengisa, like people that sell on the side of the road, right? Informal traders, right? 5 years from
Yeah.
now, he's made enough money. He's moved into a back room, right? Now he's selling from a garage of someone, right?
Okay.
Slowly but surely, his business is becoming formal. So he can have a say by saying, no, this is where I started. I started trading illegally or informally first, and then I formalized it through what? Through paying tax, through
Yeah.
registering the company, through actually having a lease agreement with the owner, having a lease agreement with my suppliers, having a lease agreement with, with my distributors. That's you
Yes.
formalizing the business. But we can't say someone who's selling, who uses taxi, who uses other means of transport with no formal document. He doesn't even know his balance sheet, how much he makes in a month is not written down anywhere. That person cannot tell someone who's got balance sheets, who pays their taxes, and who pays whatever business related price, right? I don't know if I made sense there.
Um, you're making sense. I mean, I appreciate your views. Still, we have very, very different views, which is why I brought you into the conversation because of our conflicting views. From a
Yeah.
personal point of view, I would say, I would say that is very what's the word? Mm, I would say that you're. I don't want to say taking it from a looking down upon them perspective, but then I would say it's interesting because I can't really say you're speaking from a place of privilege when you yourself are from a small township that's plagued with a lot of informality, right? But I feel my closing statement from my side would be I would like for the next generation of planners to take it back to the basics of planning and for, in my personal view, planning should be for advancing the greatest good of those who have the least power and have their voices less heard in society. So by saying that, I would like for planning to take a step back from being scientific and technical and going back to the social sciences of society and people, because that is what planning is about. That is what city making is about. It's about the people. And in our African context, our cities are about informality, our cities are about those street vendors on the side of the road. And that's really what my conversation is about. Do away th- let's do away with those northern tools, that zoning, because they don't recognize what exists on the ground. But thank you so much for joining my conversation, and I hope you'll listen to it and maybe take a thing or two from the different episodes and people I've interviewed. I've surely learned a lot. Thank you. Bye.
Oh, oh, thank you for having me on
No
your podcast.
problem.
Very interesting views, but as a closing remark, right,
Yes.
you should uh actually start pushing this forth. So start engaging more with informal
Mm,
traders and people who've been in business for longer to understand because planning in itself is very rigid. So if it's not black, it's white, right? But
Yeah.
now the problem comes in the social problems, the social cues. So the way
Mm.
you're looking at it from a very rigid point of view, and you're trying to accommodate the many social cues that plague South Africans. So stuff like
Yes.
unemployment, access to opportunities, the way you live. So all those things, try to consider them when you engage with these people. Okay. But other than
Okay.
that, I wish you all the best with your podcast and your dissertation. Hopefully, I was able to share a few points that you could ponder on, and I hope your whoever you're presenting this to can take this a step further and escalate it. So
Okay. Thank you so
from
much.
my
Bye.
bye, you're welcome.